Hello and welcome to Magda Knits. This is my little space where I talk about all of my knitting and yarn spinning. In my previous episode I was also talking a little bit about sewing. Today unfortunately I don't have any sewing to show you, but I will give you a little bit of an update at the end of the episode if you are interested. I have noticed that after my previous video there have been a few new subscribers, so thank you so much for choosing to subscribe to my channel. I hope you will enjoy this episode as well, and yeah, thank you so much for spending some time with me, whether you are a new viewer or a returning one. Today I have quite a lot to show you. I've got 3 finished objects, I've got 1 work in progress to show you, and I've got quite a few skeins of yarns that I finished spinning within the last few weeks since my last episode. So I'm going to show you all, and as always, if you are interested in anything in particular you can skip right ahead, because in the description below you can find all the timestamps. So without further ado, I am going to talk first about the first finished object, and this is the one that I'm wearing. So this is the Easy Eyelet yoke dress by Chantal, who is known as Knitatude, I believe. And yes, this is a knitted dress. I will insert a picture to show you how it looks like, because with this angle of the camera you're not going to be able to see the whole garment, although I will try to stand up and show you bits and bobs, which I'm going to talk about in more detail. This dress I have finished a few weeks ago, and it is knit in a DK weight yarn, and it is knit in a cotton yarn. I guess maybe when it comes to the specifics of the yarn I will talk about those in a minute, but maybe first I will focus on the construction itself. So it is sort of like a mid-length dress, I guess. It is just above the knee, and I have used just under 4 skeins of yarn on this, and the overall cost of the project, if you like, I think it cost me just under £14. Again, I'm kind of driving at the yarn and I was supposed to talk about the construction, so I'll talk about the cost and the yarn and everything related to that in a minute. But in terms of the construction, so it is a top-down design, and you start with obviously casting on around the neckline, and you are starting with creating a folded neckline. Now, if you know me and if you watched my previous episodes, you know that I do struggle a little bit with a folded neckline. This time I tried to do it slightly differently. So essentially, when you are doing a folded neckline, very often you are asked to do a provisional cast on. Now, I do struggle with that a little bit, and I do admit that even though I was supposed to do a little bit more research and I was supposed to learn a little bit more about it, I kind of didn't. So what I did instead, when I was casting on the stitches, I decided to have 2 sets of needles at the same time. So as I cast on the stitches, as I started knitting, the stitches on one side remained on a separate cord of a circular needle, and then the rest was knit on another set of needles. And as I was ready to fold, all the stitches were already on the cord of the needle, so I didn't really have to bother about like picking any stitches up or anything like that. I felt like this could sort of solve the problem that I had in the past, and it kind of did, but it still doesn't really feel like it's working out perfectly. I think I still ended up doing something wrong, and I didn't end up with the same number of stitches for some reason still. So it is a little bit slanted around the neckline. The stitches are going in one direction. Is it that way or that way? I can't see it from here, but yeah, it's just still not perfect. I also was a little bit worried about whether this was not going to turn out a little bit too tight. So as the top of this neck is actually still quite elastic, it can still go through my head. The inside, so where the stitches were actually folded and knit together, it doesn't really have much give. It is quite stiff, and the opening is just big enough to put my head through it. So I was a little bit worried it was not going to work. But yeah, in the end it worked out. I can still put it on, obviously. So it's fine, but I really do need to sit down and do proper research and finally learn how to properly do a folded neckline. So one day I'm going to do it properly, because I really do like the look of a folded neckline. So once you get the folded neckline out of the way, then you are doing the increases on the yoke, and the increases are done by inserting those little eyelets here into the yoke. Now, the original pattern is telling you to do 4 rows of those little eyelet holes, but I didn't want them to go that far down, so I decided to do only 3 rows of those eyelets, and then on the 4th row of increases I decided to do just regular increases by knitting increasing one to the right. And yeah, and then you just carry on knitting in stockinette until you reach the waistline. Once you reach the waistline, and I guess if you are knitting with the cotton yarn just like I did, I guess you have to be a little bit mindful of the weight of the fabric. So cotton yarn is, I guess, slightly heavy, and it tends to stretch, and because it's a dress, so there's also quite a lot of fabric below the waistline, it kind of tends to pull. So I guess I was debating with myself where should I stop really and insert the waistline. I guess what happened, and I'm going to show you in a second, well, I'm going to show you now. So essentially, I guess maybe I could get away with having the waist just a little bit higher than what it is right now. So this is where it falls now. I guess it's not too bad. But I guess the problem happens when I turn around. As you can see, the fabric is actually pulling at the back. So the back is lower than the front, and I'm not particularly happy about that. I'm not sure why this is happening. Like, the whole back is kind of just pulling down, and I think I have this problem with many of my garments, that I guess this is shape of my back. I don't know. It just feels like very often it's either very baggy or things just end up like being pulled a little bit lower than the front. And I'm assuming it might be something to do with the number of short rows that I'm doing. Perhaps I need to do more. I don't know. I guess I don't fully maybe understand the construction of a sweater enough to understand what kind of modifications I should be doing to have the front pulling a little bit more to the front. So loads of my sweaters end up just like pulling to the back, and then the neckline just ends up being close to my neck. And I don't mind it, because I do like to have a snug neckline, but it's just, especially on this garment, it feels like everything is just shifting to the back. So very often I just end up doing this. Which I shouldn't really be doing, because it should have a perfect fit. But yeah, I don't know if you have any ideas like why this is happening. Like, if you could let me know, that would be great. But yeah, it's not a massive problem, but I'm a little bit conscious about it. So yeah, so as it comes to the waistline, so when you decide where you want to put the waistline on this dress, you are actually going to cast off. It kind of feels like why should you be casting off? Because then you're going to be knitting the skirt. So what's the point of casting off at this stage? But actually it does make sense, because it gives you this really nice edge around the waistline. And afterwards, when you're finished with the whole thing, you are actually going to insert a little bit of elastic to keep the waist a little bit more cinched in. So it's much easier to insert that elastic when you have like a little bit of a defined line on the waist. So once you cast off, you're then picking up those stitches, and then you're knitting the skirt. So the skirt is just basically, you know, a bunch of increases on the first rows, and then it's just miles and miles of stockinette stitch, which I love, so I didn't mind. And I must admit, I have knit this dress really, really quickly. I think I cast this on the 25th of April, and I think I was done on like 14th May or something. So for a dress, that is actually really quick. I was surprised myself how quickly that went. I do admit that the reason why it went so quickly as well is because of the size of the needle. So this is made on a 6mm needle, and you are aiming for the gauge of 19 stitches. I did get the gauge and I did use the recommended needle size, but the fabric that I produced with the yarn that I was using, so the yarn that I was using on this project was the Cloudborne Fiber Pima Cotton DK. And when I looked at the yardage, I can't remember from the top of my head what the yardage is exactly on this yarn. I think it might have been 211 meters. But when I compared it to the yarn that was used in the sample of the original pattern, the yardage was a little bit longer. So this yarn was just a little bit thinner. And I think that's why I ended up with the situation of a bit of a see-through. As you can see, I have to wear a vest underneath because I feel really self-conscious if I don't. So I guess that was slightly disappointing for me, that I guess this has now turned into more of a spring/autumn dress that I have to wear with a vest underneath and tights, because the skirt is not that see-through. I think maybe because you are doing more increases and the fabric is a little bit more flowy and it's not as close to the body, so I think it's not as see-through, but I still feel very self-conscious. I'm like almost scared that if there is a certain light from a certain angle, then you will be able to see through. So I would just wear this dress with a pair of black tights and a pair of black vest. It's fine. As I say, I'm gonna wear it in spring and in autumn, maybe with like a cardigan over my shoulders. But I wish I could wear it in summer as well. So yeah, so the fabric is just a little bit more see-through than what you can see on the pictures of the sample. But I think I couldn't find this yarn here in the UK that was used originally in the pattern. And I got this yarn, actually this yarn I got last year during some kind of sales. I think it was a really good price. So yes, I have used, so I got 5 skeins at that time, but I have used only under 4 skeins. I guess the reason is also because I made this dress just a little bit shorter than the pattern was kind of recommending, but I guess when it comes to the length of a dress, that's very much, you know, it's almost like with the length of the sweater, you just knit it as long as you want. So I knew that I wanted it to be just slightly shorter than what I saw in the pictures of the sample. And also, I was very mindful of the fact that the fabric was going to stretch, so I kind of kept that in mind. And so I ended up using just under 4 skeins, and that, I think, in terms of price, I think it was just like under £14 for the whole dress, which is, yeah, pretty good. And yeah, in general, I guess cotton yarn is much cheaper than like woolen or wool yarn. So I think you can get this dress at a fairly decent price. Yes, so I was talking about the gauge, I was talking about the yarn. The color of this yarn is called Slate. I got this yarn from Lovecraft's website. I'm not entirely sure whether it is exclusive to Lovecraft's, but if you go to their website, I think you can't find this color anymore, and last time I checked, I think they had only like 2 colors available, but perhaps it is available in other places as well. The color is a little bit something like really dark navy with a hint of like purple-ish and gray. I remember that originally I wanted it to be black, but they didn't have black color in this yarn, and as I say, the price was pretty attractive, so I just went for the darkest color that they had at that time. And yeah, I'm quite happy with this color. I think it will go pretty much with anything. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about this dress. So the next finished object that I would like to show you is a summer top that I have knit and finished fairly quickly. Probably would have been finished much quicker if I wasn't doing so much spinning in between. I will insert a picture to show you properly what it looks like and how it sits on the body. The pattern is called Vegas Top and it's by Susanne Muller. And the reason why I wanted to knit it is because it's so simple and it can literally go with anything. And this is exactly what I needed in my wardrobe, because I have realized that very often I am gravitate towards patterns which have something a little bit more interesting, or sometimes the design might be a little bit driven by the yarn that I have, and perhaps the color doesn't necessarily go with everything. So what I really needed is something super simple and black so that I can wear it with anything. And this is exactly what I've got here in this top. The price, I would say, is a little bit ridiculous, because the whole top cost me, well, if I bought this yarn nowadays, it would cost me £4 for a whole top. Like, you can't even buy a top in a shop for £4. I don't think you can even buy a top for £4 in Primark anymore. So that was really cheap, but the yarn actually is repurposed. So I have finally embraced the idea of frogging. If you know me, you know that I hate frogging and I was always avoiding it. But I think I have finally came to realization that I really need to get over it. And I found it really liberating. I think what really prompted me is the fact that I was really struggling with space in my wardrobe. And I looked at all my knits and I could see a bunch of stuff that I know I don't wear. And I still have a bunch of tops that I know I don't wear and I will never wear. They are still not frogged. And I think the reason is because the yarn is in a color that I don't like. So I will probably not knit with it again. So yeah, that's why it's not still ripped back. But I ripped back this one because I knew I was going to use the yarn. It used to be a summer, spring top sweater, I guess. It was like a 3/4 length sweater. It was, I think it was a pattern by Drops. Drops is, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Drops patterns. I used to knit quite a lot of them and absolutely none of them fit me. I'm pretty sure I was doing gauge swatches and I was using recommended needles and whatnot, and they would always end up being too big. But anyway, this one, yeah, it didn't fit, and also I didn't even like the look of it. Like, I guess it was back in the day when I was very drawn to a type of stitch, something that I wanted to try. Maybe I looked at the look of a certain garment on someone else, but as I looked at the finished garment when it was done, I was like, I'm never gonna wear it. And that's true, I was never wearing it. So it was just a waste of yarn. So the yarn has now turned into the Vegas top. This is Drops yarn. It's the Drops Cotton Light. I've had it, I purchased it a long time ago, and I think since then they changed the fiber content. I don't know exactly what's the fiber content nowadays, but I think it's got some polyester, which I guess is not great. I'm trying to be a little bit more conscious about buying yarn that has plastic in it. And yeah, it's not something that I would maybe like definitely buy nowadays, but because it's repurposed yarn, I kind of feel less bad about it, because at least I'm making use of something that I already had anyway. And we'll see how it wears in terms of like breathability and stuff. But I think the cotton content is quite high in this as well, so I don't think I should be sweating much in it. It is, however, a DK weight yarn, and I guess this is the thickest I would go for a summer garment. I don't know, like maybe I'm wrong, maybe I should try, I don't know, a worsted weight yarn to knit a summer garment, but in my head it always feels like it will just create a really thick fabric. So if I'm knitting something without sleeves, the idea is that I'm going to wear it in summer when the weather is hot. So I don't want to have a thick fabric because I'm still going to be too hot. Yeah, so I always prefer to knit summer stuff in fingering weight yarn, where I generally prefer fingering weight yarn for everything, but for summer stuff especially. So I was, I guess, slightly worried maybe to knit with DK, but I think it's going to be fine. I haven't really had a chance to wear it much, but the weather is getting really nice now, so I'm sure I will get to wear it. In terms of the construction of this top, you start at the top and you knit down. You start at the shoulders here. I can't even remember exactly how the construction happened. I think, well, it definitely starts with the provisional cast on again. So I messed up, I think, a little bit because it just ended up being a little bit bulky. Again, I did the whole trick of like having a spare needle while I was casting on, but yeah, it doesn't look very neat, so I need to do it properly next time. I think you knit down separately, then you pick up the provisional cast on, do the same on the back, and then you join everything in the round. I can't remember exactly, to be honest, I'm sorry, but it's fairly simple, very straightforward. The pattern is well written, so it's very easy to follow, and you are joining in the round fairly quickly. And then again, it's just plain stockinette, and as it comes to the bind off and all the finishing around the neckline and the shoulders or the armholes, this is the I-cord bind off. So yeah, something very simple. I guess not much to talk about it. My Vegas summer top by Susanne Muller. I would highly recommend it. She's got a few lovely patterns on Ravelry. There was another top that I liked more the look of, but again, it was a worsted weight for a worsted weight yarn. So I felt like it's a little bit too heavy. And I didn't even have a worsted weight yarn in my stash in cotton or any other summer suitable fiber. So I just went for this one because it was meant to be for a DK weight yarn. This was knit on 4.5mm needles. Although the original pattern, I think it asks for a 4mm needle, but I couldn't get the gauge on the number 4 needle. It's supposed to have the gauge of 19 stitches, so I had to go up to 4.5. I can't remember if I got the gauge spot on or whether I was a little bit off, but either way it fits perfectly fine, so yeah, who cares. And I think that's all I was gonna say about this finished object. And the last one that I wanted to show you is something really quick because there is nothing particularly special about it. So this is a pair of socks, and they are the knee-length socks. Again, if you watched my podcast for a while, you might have seen them around autumn time. At that time, I was very much not a monogamous knitter. I had a few projects on the go and I was feeling very overwhelmed, so something had to go to the back, and this was just sitting in my stash as a whip for quite some time. But because the weather was getting nicer lately and I felt like I wanted to have some small project that's a little bit more portable, and during that time I was knitting the dress, which already had quite a lot of fabric. I didn't feel like sometimes knitting on this while I was sitting in the garden. I wanted something much smaller, and I was just constantly picking up those socks until I finally finished them. So this is no pattern in particular, this is just a simple vanilla sock. So what I did, I have cast on 68 stitches, I did 20 rounds of ribbing, and then I was decreasing 2 stitches on each side every 10 rows. And I kept doing that until I have reached 56 stitches, and at that point I was around like here more or less, which is the place where I would normally cast on a regular sized sock, and I would cast on 56 stitches. So I was in exactly the place where I would be for a regular vanilla sock, so the rest was just a normal construction from here. I did the heel flap and gusset and Kitchener stitch on the toe. So yeah, just a plain sock. I did not get a chance to wear them at all because the weather has been way too warm for that, but I know I will wear them a lot during winter because that was the whole purpose. I just wanted to have longer socks to keep me warm in winter, so I will wear them a lot. And the yarn that I have here, this is Lay Family yarn. I got this yarn as a prize in a knit along. That was the knit along, it was the across the pond shawl cowl, which was run by Fernanda of Little Monkeys and Me and Ruth of the Ruth Loves to Knit podcast. So I was one of the lucky winners and I got this yarn, and it was basically a like a sock set. So you had the main color and the contrasting yarn came in a little skein, I think of like 20 grams. And I must say I was absolutely playing yarn chicken till the very end. I think I was left with, I don't know, like 4 inches left. Literally just enough to weave in the ends. I think it's because I like to knit my cuffs quite long. And I don't know, maybe when I join the yarn, I leave quite a lot of ends to weave in. I don't know. I was just really scared I was going to run out, but luckily they're all perfectly and properly finished. And speaking of the across the pond shawl cowl, I think Fernanda and Ruth are running this cowl again. So if you like knitting shawls and if you are not aware of their cowl, although I'm sure you are, then yeah, they're just starting, so you may want to join. I will not be joining this year because I came to realization that I really am not a shawl person. I have made only one shawl in the past, and that was exactly the shawl that I entered in that knit along. It was the Homely Bee shawl, and yeah, I just don't wear it. I guess the reason why I wanted to knit it is because of this little bees motif. So I did, but it's just not really getting much wear. And so yeah, I don't think I will be knitting shawls in the future. And the Homely Bee, actually Lerke of the Fiber Tales, she released a pair of socks with the little bees motif as well. So I might actually get that pattern and knit myself a pair of little Homely Bee socks. Although I lost a little bit of my sock knitting mojo, I've got a pair of socks on the go. I think it's been on the go for like 2 months and I can't be bothered to pick them up. So yeah, I'm waiting for my mojo to be back. But for now, it's mostly about garment knitting. So speaking of garment knitting, let me show you my whip. This is what I'm currently working on. This is a design by Rachel Ilsley and the pattern is called Why Not? As in not, as in not. I'm going to put the name on the screen so you will know what I mean. It's a beautiful design, a summer, spring t-shirt, which is part of her new collection of macrame inspired designs. I feel really excited about more of these type of patterns. There is no macrame involved in the construction of this, and there is no crocheting either, although the yoke, it really reminds me of crocheting, but they are very clever knit stitches that create this interesting effect. And I'm knitting this in the Knitting for Olive cotton merino yarn, and I think I'm going to talk about this more when it's actually finished, because I kind of found that it just works better for me if I have a finished object and I talk about it from the beginning till the end, because if I talk too much about the project while it's a WIP, then I feel like I have nothing to talk about when it's actually finished. So I will talk a little bit more in my future episode, because I'm sure it will be finished by then. The only thing I guess that I would like to show you is the back. I have a problem at the back. It's absolutely only my fault. It's got nothing to do with the pattern. But the reason why I want to show it to you now is because next time I show you this as a WIP, it will probably be gone, or at least I hope it will be gone. So basically I struggle with the end of the round to make it nice and neat, and I ended up with a horrible lathering effect, which looks absolutely disgusting, but I will, once it's finished, I will close it with from the inside with a bit of a yarn. So this is what I've got. I don't know if you can see it well, but it's like a line that runs, and I don't even know, well, it's not straight because I'm not holding it straight, but it looks quite disgusting. It's just not nice. So I will have to fix it while I am closing everything from the inside. Yeah, it's just because there are loads of yarn overs and some very new to me stitches and techniques. I kind of, I guess, struggle with managing the yarn, but it's fine. I think I will be able to close it and just make it look a little bit neater. I also lost a few stitches, so I keep them on the stitch holders. Again, loads of yarn overs and stuff, so I just messed up. But it's fine, it will be all saved. So I will show it to you next time. I just wanted to kind of show you what I'm working on. I will also insert a picture of what the finished object looks like, at least the sample that Rachel made, because I think it's a beautiful, beautiful t-shirt. And yeah, I mean, Rachel is like, she's my favorite designer, so I always gravitate towards her designs. But yes, I will show you more when it's finished. It will definitely be in my next episode. So that's all the knitting content that I have for today. I will jump onto spinning now, because I have done quite a lot of spinning and I have a few yarns to show you. And I have realized, no, I've got them all here. Okay, so I'm going to show you them all. So this is the first one. This is the second one. I've got this. And I've got this. I will talk about these one by one just to show you, just to tell you what they are. And finally, this. So in a chronological order, let's start with this one. So this one I was actually showing to you last time. In my previous episode, it was my WIP at that time. This is a merino fiber that I have dyed myself, and I have spun it in the 2-ply yarn. When it comes to all the specs of the yarns, as in like the weight of the skein and the length and wraps per inch and all of that, I will put it on the screen. Or if you are interested about more information, you can go to my Ravelry page and have a look at the specs as well, because I got a little bit obsessed about catching all of the types of specs that you can, like grist and wraps per inches and weight and yards per pound and whatnot. Yeah, you can have a look at my Ravelry page. But yeah, this is the first finished skein. I have realized the color got a little bit muddy. I will put a picture of the braid so you can see what it looked like, but the color, it kind of got lost and it just all got sort of muddled up. I mean, you can still see some of that purple, I guess, but the braid felt a little bit more purple-ish. Having said that, I still love the yarn because I was aiming for something dark and very moody. So this is exactly what I achieved here. And yeah, this is my first skein. Absolutely no destination for it, no idea what I'm going to do with it. As always, just a growing pile of handspun yarn. The second one that I spun, so this one I'm going to be talking a little bit more about. I want to kind of stop here. So this is a 3-ply. Is it a 3-ply? Yes, it is a 3-ply. This is Massam fiber. So a while ago, when I started spinning, I got really curious about different breeds, and I got different wool tops from different sheep, and I really wanted to kind of experiment and see how they spin and how they feel and what kind of yarn they produce. But at that point, I kind of got more attracted to color, and I was more experimenting with different hand-dyed braids just to play with color in general. So the idea of spinning different type of fiber kind of went to the back. But now I kind of rediscovered it, so I'm really hooked on different types of type of fleece, and this is the Massam. Now, the reason why I went for Massam is because I have something very specific in mind that I would like to do, that I would like to knit in the very distant future. So it's not going to happen this year, for sure. But I would like to explore different options and finally find the perfect fiber and the perfect spin to do what I have in mind. So what I would like to do is I would like to knit myself like an outdoor garment, like a coat. And I actually have a very specific pattern in mind. I can't remember the name of this pattern, I can't remember the designer, but I'm going to put the picture on the screen with the name of the designer and the pattern to show you what it looks like. Now, I would like to knit this from my handspun yarn, but I am still trying to figure out what would be the best type of fiber and how should I spin it to get the best results. By the way, something that I have in mind that I want to say, but I know I'm going to forget, when it comes to the pattern itself, I really want, like, I love this jacket. I have in mind that I would like to modify it a little bit, so I would like to make it a little bit longer, and I would like to have the buttons on the whole length of the coat, so including the collar, so you can actually have it up and close it completely with a button, and I want the buttons to go to the bottom of the coat as well. And I would make the sleeves longer as well because they seem really short on the pattern, and I just want this to be like a proper coat, so I want to be fully covered. But anyway, yes, so that's regarding the pattern. But going back to the yarn, so I don't really know how exactly I should be spinning to achieve the best type of yarn for like an outdoorsy kind of garment, and what kind of fiber would be best for it. So if you have any suggestions, let me know as usual, because when it comes to the softness, this is absolutely the bottom of the list, because this is going to be worn over other stuff. Obviously, this is going to be outer garments, so if it is itchy, I don't care. Yes, I guess the collar is going to be around my neck and face, but I'm probably going to wear it like with a cowl or a scarf or something, so again, there's not going to be much of a skin touching situation, so it can be itchy. And for some reason I felt like, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of reading and I'm going to try to figure out what's the best durable fiber. And I think Massam came up as one of those fibers that are quite durable, and they're not necessarily very soft. And again, as I say, I don't really care about the softness in this case, so I just went for Massam just to see how it spins. Now, the type of fiber is one part of the puzzle, but the other part of the puzzle is about how do you spin it. So I had a bit of a dilemma and I couldn't kind of make up my mind because again, I don't really have enough knowledge. I need to do a little bit more research and a little bit more reading about how I should really spin to achieve what I'm aiming for, because Okay, so what I'm thinking is obviously I want something that's really warm. So I'm thinking probably like a woolen spun yarn would be the best option. But then again, it's going to be pilling, or it will be more prone to pilling. But then maybe if I choose the right type of fiber, it's not going to be pilling as much. But then if you do worsted spinning, then it's going to be more durable. So I have so many questions in my head and I don't have any answer. So I'm just experimenting. So what I did with this fiber, I completely overspun it. There is too much twist and the yarn ended up being completely ropey. It's very unpleasant. And I think this is really suitable more for like a rug or something. I don't want to say anything negative about Massam because I'm pretty sure this fiber can be really lovely and more lofty and more pleasant if you don't add that much twist. But what I ended up with here is something really, really harsh and not very usable. But it was very much a learning curve, and I think this cane really sparked this interest in trying to learn more and trying to find out a little bit more about techniques of spinning in general. And I don't have it here with me, but this really inspired me to finally pick up the book that I bought a while ago. It's the Yarnitecture by Gillian Moreno. If you are a spinner or if you are familiar with spinning in general, I'm sure you've heard of this book before. It's really informative. It's really inspiring as well. So it kind of opened my eyes a little bit into spinning a little bit more. I still have loads of questions in my head, but you know, I think it's a never-ending learning curve with spinning. You just keep discovering stuff, you just keep learning new things. But I guess if you don't experiment, if you don't try, then you won't really learn yourself. So that was a little bit of a failure. What I have spun, okay, this is not really chronological, but I want to show you something that's a bit of a contrast, and it's that. So this has got a lot of hair on it, my hair. This is Black Welsh Mountain. And again, the reason why I was spinning it is purely because of curiosity. It's a different type of fiber that I have never tried before, and I wanted to experiment with a different drafting technique. So this one was worsted spun. So for those who are maybe not like fully aware what a worsted spun yarn is, it just means that when you are spinning, you are smoothing all the fibers as you spin them. Whereas this one, I tried for the very first time to do woolen spinning, and oh my god, that is really hard. It was just not working, and that's why this yarn ended up being really bulky. I haven't really checked the specs, like I haven't checked the yardage. I don't know how many reps per inch there is, but like it is really thick. Having said that, it's really uneven, so there are thicker and thinner bits, but maybe you can see how kind of chunky it is. And comparing it to that one, it's just much thicker. And it's interesting how different the yarn feels. Both of these came off, each of them were 100-gram wool top. I do not have perfectly 100 grams in each of them because there is always a little bit of waste. This one, I think it's 90, well, I've got it here. It's 98 grams, 127 meters. It's a 3-ply. This is a 3-ply as well. Look how different they are. And when I was spinning this, I really had quite a lot of waste left. So I'm pretty sure it's actually less than 98 grams. And yet, just purely because it's different fiber, but also different type of drafting technique, look how different these yarns are. Like this is really lofty and bulky. There is a lot of air trapped in this yarn, and in here, because I was kind of doing the worsted spinning, all the air was kind of squeezed out of of the strands during the spinning and then the plying process. So it's incredible how different things can turn out. And this one, like, look at the drape on this, like it's really floppy, whereas this is like kind of stays in place. So that was, yeah, I loved this experiment just to see how things work out. Definitely need to practice woolen spinning. It is tricky. I don't know how you can make woolen spinning that's like thinner. It's just, I don't know if I will ever get there. But yeah, that's the Black Welsh Mountain Top as part of another experiment that I did. The next one that I would like to show you is, let me show you this one. So this was purely just spinning for color, and this was spun from a wool top that I got from Brie from the Doodlebug Yarn Co. She sent this braid to me as a Christmas gift, and it was like Christmas colorway. Let me show you what it looks like. Gee, the colors are really blown out. I'm sorry, I should have probably adjusted the light a little bit better, but it's basically a lot of green, a lot of red, and a little bit of white. This is a 100% merino wool top, and again I'm going to put the specs on the screen because I don't remember the yardage and stuff. Yeah, so very Christmassy, although to be honest they give me very much like a watermelon vibe. Again, the color is a little bit blown so you can't see it very well, but it's very green and very red. And yeah, it was giving me watermelon vibes because as you're drafting, you've got the drafting triangle, and sometimes the way the colors would arrange, you would have like a triangle of red, just a tiny bit of white, and then the green. So very much like a watermelon. Yeah, so that's the yarn that I spun. And then finally, this one. This is the Blue-Faced Leicester wool top that I dyed myself a few weeks ago. And again, this was the reason why I wanted to spin it was mostly because of the color. So let me show you this a little bit closer. Again, because it's a bit blown out, it looks brighter than it actually is. It's just a little bit darker. But as I was spinning this, I was loving the colors, but the moment I started drafting, this is the first time I was spinning with the BFL, and oh my goodness, I absolutely fell in love with this fiber. I love how it was spinning, and I love the finished yarn as well. It's so soft, it's so fluffy, it's so lofty, and I just love it. I just want to spin with BFL now. I just love it. So again, this kind of sparked the curiosity about different breeds. So that was another part of the experiments that I'm doing with different sheep breeds. This is a 3-ply. There was quite a lot of white left in this wool top. So as I was dyeing it, I was really trying to control myself when it comes to splashing colors, because for a very long time I wanted to dye a wool top where I leave quite a lot of chunks of white to see how, you know, the colors kind of mellow down and how they blend. So I guess this time I was quite successful. So that was the first braid that I dyed. At that time I also dyed another one where I left even more white, which I think is going to be even more interesting to spin. I haven't spun it yet. It's the other one was on the merino wool top. Yeah, it was 100% merino. But yeah, this little fella, I love it. I love the feel of it. I'm not so keen on the color. I was a little bit, I guess, disappointed with what I achieved. I didn't expect this to be so blue. I mean, it was blue dye, so what was I expecting? I don't know what I was expecting, but it's just not my color, I guess. So another yarn that will go to the stash. I really need to start thinking about using up all my handspun. Not to mention the sweater quantity that I spun and I showed you in my previous episode that I haven't even cast on yet. I guess the reason is that I'm currently not so much into spinning with wool because of the weather, and I want to make the most of the spring and summer months, and I just want to knit more of summer garments in sort of like cotton and linen. So my handspun sweater is going to happen, but it will probably happen closer towards winter. Yeah, so that's all I have for my spinning content as well. And now I guess I can tell you very quickly about sewing. It was really encouraging to read your comments under my previous episode, and some of you contacted me on Instagram as well. You said that you felt inspired as well to pick up sewing. So many of my viewers, it turns out, they're also very novice sewers, or they want to start sewing but they haven't found the motivation just yet. So I hope maybe I encouraged you a little bit, and if you ever thought about sewing a skirt, then again I highly recommend the pattern that I was sewing, and the link you can find it under my previous video. But I did talk last time about me wanting to make a summer dress. I couldn't make up my mind about a pattern. In the end, I have decided, but I don't have the finished object with me because I haven't really found the time. I guess mostly it was because of the time to actually make it. So I decided to make this dress. Can't remember the name, can't remember the designer. I'll put the picture and all the info as usual. Yes, I really like the design. I think it should be fairly straightforward to make. And actually I did a practice run on some old fabric. And maybe this is actually one of the reasons as well why I still haven't made it in proper fabric, is because it didn't really work out. Now, again, if you watched my previous episode, if you know about all my struggles with reading patterns and stuff, you know that it just does, like, it's like a different language for me, the sewing patterns. But this time actually it did make sense. So I must say that this pattern is well written, and I did make some mistakes because I didn't understand what I was reading, but I was able to figure out what I did wrong, so when I do it properly I know what I should do differently. I think what I struggle with the most, and I guess this was also revealed on this dress, is so when you make the bodice, for example, and you've got the zip on one side, so when you are putting the bodice together, obviously you are sewing all the bits, but you have to leave an opening on one side. And say the pattern says to leave the right side like as an opening for the zip. And for me it's like, okay, what is right side? Is it, do you mean as the pattern is in front of me, flat in front of me on my table, do you mean my right side? Or do you mean while it's on me, it's gonna be on my right side, because that's the opposite side? So I'm like, what is left and what is right when I'm reading a sewing pattern? And I think I figured that when it says do something on the right, it's literally like right in front of you when it's flat. Not, don't try to imagine it on yourself. It's like, it just says what it is. So what happened during my practice run, I messed it up. So things just didn't work out, and the zip opening on the bodice was on the other side that it was supposed to be. And for some reason I think the skirt, I think it was supposed to have a zip opening as well, but it ended up on the other side, so it didn't make sense. But I think I'm able to figure it out once I do it again. You see, the problem is that I did it a while ago, now I can't quite remember. So this may turn out to be a problem. Another problem that I have encountered as well is, regardless of the problem with the zip opening, when I put the dress on, it didn't really fit. And I think the problem is also because of my body shape, and we're all, different. And I still kind of struggle to decide which size I should go for when I'm sewing. So as it turns out, or when I was looking at the sizing on this particular dress, I first started to make decisions about the size when I was measuring my bust area. So that just ended up being, I think it was size 12, which is so bizarre, by the way, because the sizes on sewing patterns, they are completely not equivalent to like the sizes in like the shops, because I have never worn a size 12 garment. But yeah, I think it was 12 that I was supposed to go for. And then when I checked the measurements around my waist, I figured that could be too snug, especially that I absolutely hate to have things tight around my waist. I just cannot stand it. So I knew that was going to be too tight. So then I was like, okay, it looks like I need to make size 14. So I went for size 14, but as I finished putting all the pieces together, I put it on, and the bodice was just too loose around the upper area here. So it was probably supposed to be size 12 on here, but around the waist it should be size 14. So it's almost like I need two different sizes. So that got me discouraged, because I'm at the stage where I really need my hand held and I don't really feel comfortable, and like I don't feel like I'm ready to experiment and like adjust patterns just yet, but I think I will have to do it. So I think what I'm going to do is all the pieces that I have, I'm going to kind of have to change their shape gradually. So the bottom, like if I'm say doing the bodice, the bottom of the bodice is going to have the lines as for size 14, but then I'm going to have to like change the shape a little bit so the top actually ends up being size 12. This could really go wrong, but I can't see any other option here, unless you guys have any suggestions, but this is probably what I'm going to do. And I was planning to actually do some sewing today and finally find the courage to cut into my fabric. But I've realized that this pattern actually needs, well, I knew it needed a lining fabric. And I don't have any fabric that could work as a lining, so I need to buy more fabric. And this is something that is a little bit daunting as well, because I'm probably going to buy it online, and it's, I guess, challenging because you can't really touch it and feel it. I'm assuming that if you want fabric for lining, it has to be something quite thin. But if I can't touch it, then I don't know if it's thin enough, if it's gonna work. And the names of fabrics, that's like another world for me as well. So I don't know what I'm looking for. What's the keyword that I should be using for searching for a lining pattern? Or should, not pattern, lining fabric? Or should I just search for lining fabric? I don't know. If you have any suggestions what can work as a lining for a dress bodice, then let me know. It's a summer dress, so I don't want anything thick. I was kind of wondering, like, can I get away without a lining? But then I'm assuming the whole construction would be slightly different. I don't know. I don't know. Step by step. First, get the fabric, then worry about the rest. Yeah. So I might sew it soon, maybe in the next episode I'm going to show you a dress. I hope so, because I guess, the summer has started and I would like to make the most of the dress this season. And let's face it, summers in UK can be very short, so I need to hurry up. But yeah, this is my sewing update. And other plans, well, as the weather got really nice now and it's really warm and it's not raining as often, I think what I should do, I should finally sort out the raw fleece that I have in my stash for spinning. So I got some, was it Rayland fiber months ago, and it's got a lot of lanolin on it, so I need to properly wash it and then dry it. And I really want to do it outside because I have a lot of it and it's just going to dry much quicker when I do it in the garden. So that might be happening. And I really want to keep in mind to maybe like make a video of the whole process that I'm doing. It's absolutely not going to be a tutorial because I absolutely don't know what I'm doing, but I can just record the whole journey so you can see what I did and perhaps have a laugh when it's not going to work out. We'll see. The plan is also to maybe dye it as well afterwards. I have a lot of onion skins that I have been saving for months now, so maybe I'm going to dye the fleece in the onion skins. We'll see. So that might be next on the agenda. Don't know when that's going to happen. Maybe this weekend. We'll see how the weather is and how lazy I feel. I've been really lazy lately. But in my defense, work has been absolutely hectic. I don't think my work has ever been as stressful as it is right now. So very often I'm staying behind late hours, and when I finish and I log off from work, I just feel so mentally exhausted. I just can't do anything other than knitting plain stockinette in front of my TV. But yeah, in the next episode, obviously, I am going to share everything with you, knitting and spinning related, and perhaps I might do some fiber dyeing. So yeah, that's all the content that I had for today. Thank you so much if you stayed till the end. I hope this wasn't too chaotic. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to reach out to me, I'm around on Instagram and on Ravelry. I am on Instagram and Ravelry as Magda Knits with double S. Sorry, I just had like a brain fart. Well, I was thinking, actually, I just remembered, speaking of Ravelry, there's going to be the Tour de Fleece starting on the 1st of July, and I decided to take part this year. So if you don't know, Tour de Fleece is basically, I don't know, a spin along. I wanted to say event, but that just sounded like way too big than what it is. It's just like a spin along, and it happens during the same time as Tour de France. So the people at Tour de France, they are cycling, you know, their wheels are spinning, and so the fiber spinners' wheels are spinning. Did I explain that right? Yeah, it basically happens during the same time as Tour de France, and you're just kind of, it's very casual. I don't think there are any prizes or whatever. I mean, maybe there are little groups of people who are kind of competing with each other and they have a prize at the end, but I signed up to the rookies group, and I'm going to be just casually spinning along with the rookies. And yeah, I just want to spin every day during the whole Tour de France. Speaking of which, again, I forgot what I've got on my wheel right now. So I have Corriedale on my wheel right now. I have a piece of fiber here. Let me pick it up. This is what I'm spinning right now. So this is a light Corriedale fiber. It's undyed. And yeah, this is, again, part of the experimenting with different types of fiber, trying something new that I have never tried before. And yeah, Corriedale, lovely fiber to spin. I've heard so much good stuff about it, now I understand why. It took me a while to start spinning Corriedale for some reason, even though it's really beginner friendly, so probably I should have gone for that instead of going straight for like merino, which is really slippery and it's got a short staple and it's not that beginner friendly. So that would probably save me loads of frustration. But yes, I'm spinning this fiber. I'm spinning this as a 3-ply. I love how it drafts. It's wonderful. I have a feeling the yarn is going to be quite pleasant as well. And I am spinning this. Did I say that I'm spinning this as a 3-ply? I probably did. Jesus, I have a memory of a bacteria. Anyway, the way it drafts, it just wants to be really thin. I don't know. I don't know if you can relate to that if you're a spinner. Probably you can. Tell me I'm not the only one. But sometimes you just put the fiber on your wheel and it just wants to be spun in a certain way, you know? And for me, this just really wants to be really thin. So I think this is going to be the thinnest yarn I have ever produced. Although, no, actually I'm spinning this as a 2-ply. I lied. I am spinning this as a 2-ply. So I divided the fiber with the intention of a 2-ply, But as I started spinning and as I realized that it's so thin, I was thinking to myself, I should have done it as a 3-ply. But I feel at this point, I would not be able to divide the fiber in a way to have like an even amount. So I'm just gonna go with 2-ply and just have something incredibly thin. Although I have heard that, or I have read, that apparently Corriedale, it plumps up a little bit after you finish it, after washing, after soaking. It is going to get a little bit more body to it. So maybe it's not going to be as thin as I think. But yeah, this is on my wheel, and I'm pretty sure, again, by the next episode, it's probably going to be finished, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. So that's what I'm enjoying, and that's what I'm probably going to be spinning during Tour de Fleece, because this is going really thin, and that's why it's probably going to take a while to finish it. But yeah. Okay, that's enough talking. I think I've been talking long enough. So thank you so much for watching. If you want to say hi, as I say, I'm on Instagram and on Ravelry. And yeah, until next time. Bye!